Hello and welcome to the NFFN and CLA joint webinar on local nature recovery strategies, focusing on what they are and why it is important for farmers to get involved with their local consultations. So hopefully you will already have some awareness of local nature recovery strategies or LNRSs, but the aim of this video is to help you understand how and why you should get involved. We'll start with a rundown from Defra and Natural England of why LNRSs are being created, what they are, what they look like, and what they all mean for you as a farmer, followed by some information from Essex farmer Pete Thompson about his perspectives, having been involved in his own local LNRS consultation, and finally some information from Bethany Turner at CLA on what to expect from your local consultation and how to respond. So now I will hand over to Ruth Tall and Hannah Foster from Defra and Natural England to give you a bit of a brief overview of LNRSs.
Thanks, Lottie. So I'm Hannah from the Defra and NRS policy team. I'm going to talk through what LNRSs are before handing over to Ruth to walk us through what LNRSs mean for landowners and land managers. So we all know that nature is in decline, and at the national level we have stretching targets for halting and reversing this decline. However, we have limited land and resources available, so we need to ensure that we're targeting our activities and resources where they will have the most impact. And this will happen best if we're collaborating across sectors. Local nature recovery strategies are a tool for showing where the best outcomes for nature and the wider environment could be achieved through targeted action. They came about through the Environment Act as a bottom-up approach for planning nature's recovery and wider environmental improvement in England. So they are spatial strategies that agree priorities for nature recovery and identify what actions should happen where they would make most contribution to achieving those priorities. They don't just propose habitat creation or restoration, but they also identify opportunities for nature-based solutions like tree planting for natural flood management to maximise wider environmental benefits. LNRSs are a source of information for farmers and land managers, but also anyone in the public, private and voluntary sectors who wants to understand what action is most important and where. This will support better decision making and better use of resources that we have available. Next slide, please. As I said, the core purpose of LNRSs is to identify where habitat creation or improvement would be most beneficial to nature and the wider environment. There's 48 strategies that cover all of England. You can see their outlines on the map on this slide, which is also available on gov.uk. And as you can see, there's full coverage with no gaps or overlaps between the strategies, as they generally follow administrative county boundaries. And the areas shaded in grey on this map are where strategies have already been published as of June 2025. So each LNRS is being prepared by a responsible authority. This is a local authority appointed by Defra to lead preparation. The responsible authorities are working closely with other local authorities in their area, as well as local Natural England, Environment Agency and Forestry Commission staff, and with other key stakeholders like NGOs, nature partnerships, local community groups and landowners and managers. And together they're agreeing what their priorities for nature are locally and identifying measures they think could help to deliver these priorities. This is a key element of LNRS, that they're locally led and collaboratively produced. This helps to balance ecological ideals with other land use needs, so ensuring the finished strategies are ambitious but deliverable and tailored to local needs. It's really important that LNRSs can evolve and keep reflecting local circumstances, which is why a review of every LNRS every 3 to 10 years is built into the legislation that underpins them. But what does an LNRS actually look like? Well, it's made up of two elements. It's made up of a written element called the Statement of Biodiversity Priorities and a mapped element, which is the local habitat map. And I'm going to hand over to Ruth now to take a closer look at what these are.
Thanks, Hannah. So I'm Ruth Tall from the Natural England LNRS team. So the next two slides are a closer look at what these two elements are, which make up an LNRS. The first of these is the Statement of Biodiversity Priorities. And this is a screenshot on screen now for the one for the West of England and North Somerset, and this was published at the end of last year, 2024. Each Statement of Biodiversity Priorities must include a description of the strategy area, including its current biodiversity, and also a description of the opportunities for recovering and enhancing further biodiversity in the area. Priorities in the statements are usually themed. In this case, you can see in the first box that nature-friendly farming, sustainable farming and living is one of those 6 chosen by the West of England. And if you delve into that a little bit more, in the second box, you can see that there is an ambition to ensure there are more thick and tall hedgerows for wildlife to travel through the landscape. And then onto specific actions in the third box. such as follow best practice by cutting every 3 years on rotation. And some LNRSs, as they develop, are doing more specific guides, in this case for farmers and land managers, but also for planners as well. Next slide, please. So what does an LNRS look like? The second element, so we've already talked about the biodiversity statement. The second element is the local habitat map. Although this map is the second element, it will most likely be the first port of call for many people. And the map includes areas currently of particular importance for biodiversity, such as sites of special scientific interest, and areas that could become of particular importance for biodiversity, and measures to achieve these. So using the West of England LNRS again as an example on screen, you can see that you can zoom in if you need to. So I zoomed into a village called Keynsham, and then you locate the parcel that you're particularly interested in. And you can see I just did that where the white X is. And a pop-up will appear, in this case for the sub-area, which is the River Avon corridor. And the pop-up first describes the priorities for this area. So it's the river corridor for nature recovery is the important thing here. And then the pop-up goes on to describe recommended measures to help with that nature recovery in that area. So here you can see there are multiple measures encouraged in this location, highlighted by the red boxes, such as enhancing riverside riparian habitats and creating woodlands. And both of these measures also provide for wider benefits, such as natural flood management and a nature-rich corridor for people to enjoy. Some LNRSs may also have a filter facility. So, for example, if you're interested in creating riverside grassland, you may filter by farmers and landholders, and then by habitat creation. But remember, all 48 LNRSs are taking different approaches, such as calling elements by different names, but they are all following the same broad guidelines. So please do look at your own one for details on the places that you know and you care about. Next slide, please. So the next two slides are on what does the LNRS mean for you. This first one is on how it might help you with decision making. And with time and money at the fore, LNRSs can be a really valuable tool in helping you make quick decisions about how you manage your land for nature recovery. And you're rest assured that these have been created locally by people such as yourselves, others farmers and land managers, other community groups, and the LNRS can provide a steer for you if you need it as to what sort of funding you might like to apply for and where, such as agri-environment schemes, which I'll mention on the next slide. They'll also be able to show you how to connect to wider nature recovery priorities, perhaps along a river corridor or in a landscape recovery scheme, for example. And lastly, remember that it will always be your choice whether to take up any of the prioritised actions. And it's really important to know that LNRS will also not require you to do any of these changes, as I just said. So they're just suggested measures. No one's going to make you do any of these on your land. They will also not impose any new legal protections or designations on land. And they won't prevent areas not on the measures or the red lines on the map from receiving funding for nature conservation work. So some actions, such as for soils and pollinators, are really important everywhere and just simply can't be mapped because they will just cover the whole of the strategy area. And also, LNRSs will not determine regulatory decisions such as environmental impact assessments. Next slide, please. So here's the second slide on what an LNRS could mean for you, this time funding. On the map pop-up a couple of slides ago, there was those couple you may have noticed the couple of links to local funding. And this is really important. As I said, these are locally designed strategies, and local funding will vary hugely from area to area. For example, in this one, which is West of England, there's the Bristol and Avon Catchment Partnership, who are funding habitat creation and restoration that improves water quality in the area. And there's also the Farming and Protected Landscapes FIPL scheme, because part of this area is in the Mendip Hills. And all of the 48 LNRSs, as I said, are produced independently. Not all will have a function like this, providing links to other funds, but the important thing is for you to know what's the equivalent in your area, and there will be lots of other local funds wherever you live. And on the previous slide, I mentioned that LNRSs can be easily matched to CS and SFI actions, many of that you're probably already doing or may wish to think about doing in the future. For example, if you look at the green table, LNRS farmland priority measure could be create and maintain habitats for farmland birds all year round, easily matched to a couple of CS SFI actions such as maintenance of scrub, creation of wet grassland for wintering waders. And as I said, you may already be doing these, and it's important to know that some of the things that you're doing may not be mapped as part of an LNRS, but they're still just as fundable through schemes. And finally, LNRS measures that are mapped and flagged as being of high strategic importance in the biodiversity net gain metric, and therefore are incentivised in that metric. So this means that when a habitat is created or enhanced for the purposes of BNG, you get 15% uplift in the biodiversity metric if it follows what's set out in the LNRS. So I'm now handing back to Hannah to show you how to get involved in the development of your LNRS. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Ruth. So LNRSs encourage collaboration across a range of partners, including environmental organisations, local communities, landowners and managers, and Defra Group, as mentioned. And this is to ensure that the strategies are of high quality and also to increase the likelihood that local partners will support delivery of the measures proposed in the LNRS. Responsible authorities are required to publicly consult on their draft strategies to give everyone in the area the opportunity to have their say on what the LNRS proposes. And it's really important that landowners and managers try to take the time to respond to the LNRS consultation for their area. This might involve attending workshops, webinars, breakfast meetings, etc., run by the responsible authority or their partners, as well as responding to the actual online consultation itself. This is so that you can share your views and relevant information about land you manage with the responsible authority, and this will help the LNRS to complement your priorities locally. As mentioned previously, the next time to input to LNRSs will be when they're reviewed and republished in 3 to 10 years' time. So it's really important that you have your say now to ensure they work for you. Thank you. And I'll pass over to Pete now.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for that. So I've been asked to contribute a little as a farmer. I farm in Essex, and I also have the dubious privilege of being one of the leaders of the Tindering Farm Cluster. Essex didn't have that many farm clusters, and when Essex County Council were quite early to engage with the LNRS process, they looked at their aims, which is 100% sustainable land use by 2030 and 30% increase in green infrastructure by 2030. They realised that they wouldn't be able to achieve that without having farmers and landowners on board. And their solution was to support clusters and set up of new clusters so that farmers could be properly consulted. And it has been an interesting experience. The Essex consultation closed some time ago. And we farm across the water in Suffolk, and that consultation has just closed. Both quite different processes, so it does sort of emphasise that your unique area will dictate what you've got to get involved with. Farmers, and looking at as a cluster leader, our members were quite concerned originally. Some of us as farmers have got quite bad memories of mapping over the years, and what's happened as a result of that mapping in terms of designations. And so getting involved actually is quite valuable in terms of giving one's self-reassurance that we're at least reviewing the mapping that affects our own land, our own farm. And quite early on, that was something that really came to mind, was that no matter how broad a range of data is obtained to come up with these maps, is that it doesn't necessarily always agree with what we know to be the case on the ground. And so we need to look at the mapping that comes out and ground truth it. In Essex's case, they produced Opportunity Map, which was made up of large 25-hectare blocks or hexagons. And as farmers, we know that you're not going to get the same nature across a field, let alone 25 hectares. So it's really important to engage in that front. And when you see the opportunity maps that arise, you really realise that we need to engage. And a good example is suddenly seeing opportunity for habitat creation of freshwater creation, for instance, that was centred on saltwater marsh, or opportunity for woodland creation, and it landed on a roundabout in Canvey Island. You realise that we do need to engage to make sure the results are ground truth. And you may say, why? What difference is it going to make? Some of the speakers have already referenced countryside stewardship and agri-environment schemes. And we generally know the direction of travel in terms of support for farming and agri-environment schemes. So if you view your land or your farmers having being a good place to develop opportunity, you need to ensure that you are included in the map to reflect that opportunity. And that's been a lesson both in Essex and in Suffolk, because we need to keep our options open as farmers to make sure that all avenues are open to us as we go forwards. And both LNRS has been very different, but there's been a real key message is that we have to give ourselves plenty of time to make submissions. It's not necessarily the simplest of processes, despite everyone's best intentions. And you have to really think about your rationale behind what you want included and what you think should be included, such that you keep those options open. And while the opportunity maps are delivered with ambition and related to what habitats are in the area already, what they don't take account of is commercial and personal opportunity and good intentions. If they don't know that you have ambitions to create woodland or to create wetland, then they're not going to include that. So you have to think of your ambitions for your farm over the next 10, 20 years and make sure those are well represented. So above all, listen, take part, make sure you look at those maps that are produced at the earliest possible stage, and then give yourself time to make a submission before the deadline.
Thanks for that, Pete. So this is hopefully you're starting to get a sense of why all this matters, why you need to engage. So just to kind of wrap up, we're just going to talk about how you do that and how you get involved. So Lottie and I will cover that. So first thing, sounds pretty obvious, but find your land on the map. So you've seen an example of what that map might look like, and finding your land is step one. And then the other thing that's really important is let your friends, neighbours, farmer cluster, anything like that, people who might not realise that this is happening, let them know as well, because despite best efforts, there are still some people who might not be aware this is happening, or might not be aware of the consultation, or whatever it might be. And basically, as is kind of already been touched on, there are loads of different mapping exercises and strategies and targets, and it's very easy to just kind of ignore it when you're focused on the day-to-day of actually running your farm business. But this is really the time. The consultation is the period where it's worth setting aside an hour, or maybe a little bit longer, maybe less, just to find out what's going on. So once you've found your land on the map, have a look. So it might be identified as an area of particular importance. It might be an area that could be of importance. There might be measures on your land. If you've been really engaged in the process so far, this probably won't be a surprise to you, because you may well have been involved. Or it might be that, for example, you have a SSSI on your land, and therefore that's reflected in the map as well. So it might not be news to you, but if there's stuff on there that is kind of a surprise to you, you need to think about, does it seem accurate? Does it seem like a reflection of what's on your land? And then the other thing is, are you doing any projects which you think should be on the land? So you might be working on a habitat bank or something like that. You might be doing pond work or river re-wiggling or anything like that. So it's really a case of looking what's on the map and seeing if it reflects what you know about your land. So
The maps are found on the LNRS website. There will be a consultation. In general, the consultation documents are not the most approachable. They tend to be quite lengthy, and the consultations tend to have quite a lot of questions, but there's no need to go through the whole thing and try and read the 100+ pages and answer every question. I mean, if you want to do that, then that's great, but it's really probably more useful to focus on your land and your experiences. And see what that looks like. And at the CLA and the Nature Friendly Farming Network, we're happy to help. So feel free to get in touch for advice if you're struggling with that, but also it might be worth getting in touch with the local authority, or the responsible authority, sorry, and making contact that way. So that's really the kind of top tip to engage with the consultation, is actually just as simple as look at your land and see what it looks like. So I'll hand over to Lottie just to wrap up.
So thank you to all of our speakers there. Hopefully you feel that after watching this video, you have a clearer understanding of what LNRSs are, why they're an important tool for the creation and improvement of habitat, why it's important for your views as a farmer to be heard and captured within these documents and maps, and how you can get involved with your local consultation. There are really good resources on the Defra website which highlight the responsible authority boundaries, so those people that you need to get in touch with about your local consultation. Alongside that map, there's also the contact details for your local responsible authority contact. And you can often also find information about the status of your local LNRS on your local authority website as well. So there's plenty of places that you can go to find out more information about the status of what's going on in your area. If you, as Bethany said, if you do have any further questions about LNRS or how you can get involved, the Nature Friendly Farming Network and CLA are both very happy to be contacted, and you can see our emails on this page here. All the links and emails will also be dropped into the video description as well for further information. So just finally, thank you very much for your time and listening to this video, and please go out and get involved.